You've probably heard that Daggerheart is Critical Role's RPG, and sure, that's true, but after running and playing about a dozen sessions, what stands out most to me has nothing to do with the show or even with this game, because you can use Daggerheart's best game mastering lesson for any RPG.
Hey, Mark here.
Hey. Bye. What the heck? Oh, it's the main point of the video already. Reframe rather than reject. But that doesn't mean never say no to your players. It's way deeper than that, hence the rest of the video. So, we gotta break this down. Cause I'm Bob, and if you know this channel, say it with me, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together. That's exactly what Daggerheart is going for here, but see if you can spot my one issue with how the first part of this lesson is presented. So, reframe rather than reject. If a player's suggestion or description is generally implausible or out of sync with what has been established in the game, try to find a way to reframe the situation and work with them rather than rejecting their idea outright. You might ask the table what it would take to accomplish a seemingly implausible task, or call out a more workable part of the suggestion and encourage the player to build on that aspect. For example, well, you might not be able to fly up to the platform using the telekinesis spell in your grimoire, but there are plenty of large rocks here you could move around if you wanted. That example is what a great GM sounds like, being clever, creative, and kind enough to give bad ideas a chance by saying, no, but my issue is that they don't explain why you must do this. So imagine, if you will, there's a little kid named Frankie sitting in science class, and his teacher, old Mr. Jerk, asks the room, "Does anyone know why leaves change color in the fall?" Little Frankie eagerly raises his hand to share his best idea. "'Cause, sir," I don't know why he sort of sounds like that, "when trees get cold, they blush like people do." What an adorable answer, little Frankie. But uh-oh, old Mr. Jerk says, "No, Francis, that's completely wrong. Does anyone have a better idea?" Wow, what a mean way to handle that. Now little Frankie is never going to want to share his ideas again, and bingo, even a lot of adults would have the same takeaway if their boss, or maybe their GM, flat out rejects their ideas in front of a group. As GM, you run the game, but when everyone feels encouraged to contribute to the game, it's way easier to run and way more fun for all, and this book has a lot more advice for how to encourage better ideas. Really should have done the leaf color changing bit up here, but what's done is done. The first collaboration advice actually comes from the player principles on page 9, pretty much the first thing players are told after what dice they need. And 2 of these 6 principles, spotlight your friends and build the world together, emphasize that the group's fun is king. And while they may sound familiar, there are some crucial nuances here. Did you catch it? It's not merely share the spotlight, as in, hey, you want to help me do this cool thing? It's saying spotlight your friends. Look for opportunities to put other characters in the spotlight. Provide them openings to do what they do best, and yeah, ask them for help and offer yours freely, and prompt them to share more of their thoughts and feelings. Remember, in a role-playing game, your turn is your moment to literally change the world with your words and actions. And this principle reminds us that the spotlight is a gift you should give to your friends. Then, build the world together goes hand in hand here. In Daggerheart, every participant is a storyteller, not just the GM. Daggerheart is a highly collaborative game and reaches its greatest potential when every player, including the GM, is working together. This means actively advocating for the story beats you want to see, offering suggestions to enrich the arcs of the other player characters, creating parts of the world with others at the table, and thinking deeply about your character's motivations. Yes, too many RPG horror stories happen because one player gets deeply invested in some development for their character or in a particular part of the game world, and that's wonderful. But then, they just expect the GM and the other players to read their mind and make that happen? This principle puts the onus on players to push for what they want, but in a way that works with the group, not stepping on anyone's toes. Personally, all my best memories from RPGs are from crazy dice rolls and from this. When one or more players pushes an idea, we say yes or no, but, and it spirals into something awesome. Now, before we get into the step-by-step instructions for fostering this kind of collaboration, know that they can be applied to almost anything in-game, but those steps are mostly framed around world building. So if you're not a GM who loves building worlds from scratch, alone or with a group, you're going to want to check out today's sponsor, Dungeons of Drakkenheim, reborn for Daggerheart. This is exactly what I was talking about in my third-party publishing Daggerheart video that not enough people watch. A high-quality, high-intensity, large-scale campaign from established publishers. We're talking the Dungeon Dudes and Ghostfire Gaming even teaming up with one of Daggerheart's designers to take their award-winning dark fantasy world into this new game system that fully embraces the battle between hope and fear. You'll explore a city torn apart by corruption and contamination with scheming political factions, freakish monsters, and powerful mutations that may tempt your heroes towards corruption. And yes, it's a full campaign that reaches max character level because it's humanly possible to design for max level in Daggerheart. Honestly, huge congrats to Kelly, Monty, the Ghostfire Gang, and Michael for taking this plunge and really raising the bar for Daggerheart creations. Check out Dungeons of Drakkenheim on Kickstarter now through my link below so they know who sent you. And can we get a nature break for how freaking pretty it is out here right now? Not to sound too much like the double rainbow guy, but wow, real peak yellow fall leaf change happening before our eyes. Funny enough, I'm recording this 1 week after the video that you just saw, or crap, that you're gonna see next week. So a little out of sync, but man, it's just lovely. Soak it in, soak it in. All right, Daggerheart recommends a 4-hour time slot to go through these steps, but I think you can do it a lot faster than that, and just because it's called Example Session 0 Breakdown doesn't mean you can't do this anytime during a campaign. And step 1 is to facilitate player introductions, so if you haven't played before, or if there's a new player joining for this session, this step is huge. I know from running convention games that when I make time for player introductions versus when I don't, it always builds camaraderie at the table, sets up an encouraging atmosphere, and that makes everything else about my job as a GM easier. Step 2 is an overview of what this Session 0 entails, but in your weekly campaign, this step is when you recap the previous session, ideally calling on players to fill in details, and for a pre-planned one-shot, this is the time to get everyone up to speed on the game's core mechanics or jump right into Step 3. The CATS framework, as in concept, aim, tone, subject, especially important for setting or resetting expectations in a campaign, but you can totally use this to improvise a one-shot adventure. Concept is the one-liner, your campaign or adventure pitch, like, "You baptized your village in death. Now, as an oath-sworn defender of the Vale, you must face death itself. Can you drive back its blackened cloud before the sorceress of Hellfast Spire incarnates this new evil?" And that's me actually remembering to promote my level 1 Daggerheart module, link below if you want to help me push it to the gold bestseller medal. Then A for aim is basically, what does everyone want? Where you cover the logistics of when you'll meet up, where, and for how long per session, as well as your creative and social goals, deciding as a group. Our aim is mostly to hang out and chat while killing monsters and getting new powers and cool items. Or, we want to tell a story that explores the relationship between grief and community through an action fantasy game in a world recovering from a near apocalypse. So to me, aim has a lot of overlap with what I think of as tone, the emotional landscape and tendency of the campaign, but I love this idea for deciding the tone because you could use it for anything really. List a bunch of words on a piece of paper and have people circle or otherwise vote for the ones that they want to see in the game. You can also cross out things if no one really wants a certain thing to be part of the game. In fact, this procedure is perfect for the last part of CATS, subject, where you collectively agree on what topics or themes to highlight or avoid. And really, the only time you want to tell a player no, straight up, reject their idea, is when they cross one of these lines that you had all previously agreed on. Back to our steps, 4 is to take a break. And step 5 is world building. Again, you can even do a small scale version of this mid-campaign, and this is even more perfect than those last steps for setting up a one-shot, because proof here, when I got a seat in a Daggerheart playtest with the lead designer, he did a quick version of this to improvise an adventure for us. They call it building a map. And that's literally it. Daggerheart provides blank maps in the appendix that everyone can label, or you just start with blank paper and go nuts. Choose the name of the region, mark any locations that players came up with in their character background questions. We're going to cover those in a minute. Then you go around the table, letting players take turns describing each location. What is it? Why is it called that? What makes it significant? And make sure someone is writing this stuff down. But overall, yeah, you are delegating duties traditionally left for the GM to prepare in secret. However, we got a squirrel over there. I thought it was a deer. However, building the map together not only makes it faster and easier, it also instantly invests your players in the game world because they helped create it. And then you make characters. So slightly contradictory with the order of these steps, but they actually have a section called Incorporating Player Backstories because the game's character sheets provide these perfect little questions. Who taught you how to fight, and why did they stay behind when you left home? Somebody defeated you in battle years ago and left you to die. Who was it, and why did it feel like such a betrayal? What legendary place have you always wanted to visit, and why is it so special? In my playtest session, that last question about a special location was bounced around the group to define the area for our final battle. And those questions are for the Daggerheart warrior, but obviously they'd work for a fighter type in any RPG, so here's your homework, little Frankie. Go download the free Daggerheart character sheets to get these questions for every class, then have each player in your group just choose and answer one question. And together, you find a way to incorporate it into the game and give this video a thumbs up. If you don't do that, this advice won't work. That's just how it happens. But there is one more tip, a Daggerheart lesson on what not to do as a GM that I happen to have made a whole video about years ago. So if you want to avoid that pitfall, click the video on your screen. Thanks again to our sponsor, and special thanks to our Patreon and YouTube channel members for supporting this channel. Keep building.